Hi, this is Dennis Gage. Thanks for tuning in to My Classic Car, home of the certified car nut. This week we're in Northampton, England at Billings Aquadrome for the American Auto Club of the UK's Summer Nationals. That's right, you heard me correctly. We're in Great Britain at a car show where they show only American vehicles. It's by far the largest event of its kind in Europe with over 6,000 Yank tanks on display. Joining me now is Harry Toon, Secretary of the American Auto Club of the UK.
Dennis.
Harry, what a great day. Do you always have weather like this here?
Well, very, very rare. We've been here for 17 years now for the Summer Nationals at Billings Aquadrome. Out of those 17 years, we've had 4 bad ones regarding weather. We're very, very fortunate this weekend, as you can no doubt see.
It's beautiful. And you've got all sorts of cars here from
Yes,
all over.
We tend to attract them from right from the 1920s right through to 1990 cars. You know, I'm sure there's a wide array of every kind of mark and make and year of American vehicle. If it's been built in the USA, it's probably here this weekend.
And you've got folks coming not only from England, but throughout Europe too.
Most certainly. I've met many visitors from the other side of the water, including the USA, while I've been working here this weekend. So
both sides of the water then?
Yes, both sides of the water, yes. But certainly from Europe and the USA.
Now, this is also pretty much, this is the biggest show of its kind. It's kind of the Mecca, isn't it,
Yeah,
for American cars?
It is recognised publicly as the Mecca for the American car enthusiast. If they go nowhere in the season, which is usually about 5 months, they will most certainly come here this weekend.
Well, Harry, this is a great event. I can't wait to get around and see all these cars. These American flags make me feel like I'm back home. Thanks for having us.
Well, we're pleased to have you here and have a bloody good time looking around.
Indeed I will. The Summer Nationals is just one of 3 yearly events that the American Auto Club of the UK holds in England. For the past several years, the Summer Nationals has been held at Billings Aquadrome in Northampton. With all the stars and stripes, it felt like a 4th of July celebration back home. The love affair with the American automobile is truly not limited to the States. It was a surreal atmosphere, with American-made vehicles all around us, yet everyone speaking with a British accent.
Well, I quit my job down at the car wash. I left my mama, hey, goodbye, no. By some time I left Kingston.
Well now, John, this is a monster. 55 Chrysler New Yorker. You don't see many of these over here, right?
No, it's the only one in the UK four-door sedan. The only one.
It's great. Now, how did you get into American cars, and how do you, I mean, driving this around, is it a little bit tricky?
It's different. I wouldn't say it's tricky, but it's the islands. That's the main thing. You see, in America, you've got straight roads. Over in the UK, you have a lot of islands. You have to slow down, and because it tends to roll a bit, it weighs 2 ton. You know, so it's quite a heavy car.
Well, how'd you get into them?
Well, really, when I was a little kid, I guess, collecting dinky cars, and you know, I suppose it was the pretty colours, but most of them I found out was American, and collecting, you know, these kit cars, and plastic kit cars. So I really got hooked on it.
You got this in North Carolina and redid the entire thing, eh?
Yes, yeah.
All chrome and...
Every bit of chrome has been re-chromed, and all the stainless steel has been repolished.
And there's a lot of it there. And the interior is stunning. It's beautiful. You said it had an original headliner and carpet.
That's right.
But the seats have been redone, eh?
The seats have been redone.
Underneath the red, white, and blue, we've got
right.
the correct upholstery.
Came from the States, especially made for me, dyed to the original colour. So that's the real Mackay, you know?
And you've got the record player option.
That's right. I came across that, but pure accident actually. And my friend got one in his loft, so we did a swap. I bought him an exhaust pipe for his British car.
And you swapped that even up?
And I swapped that, and
you made up pretty well.
Yeah.
Now, powering this was one of the early Hemis, right? A 350,
that's right.
331.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Oh, more chrome up front. Look at that. Whoa.
And everybody tells me it's fairly quiet, you know?
Oh, look at that. Big heads. Single 4-barrel.
That's right.
Cruises right down the road, does it?
Yeah.
Probably leaves a lot of other cars in the dust.
That's right. If you put, I've had 90 miles an hour out of it, but it will go up to 120. But with cross-ply tyres, 90's fast enough.
Well, I do love it. It's a beautiful restoration, and it must turn heads.
It sure does. You know, going on the motorways, people pip their horn and turn around and wave. You know, it's great.
Well, thanks a lot. It's a beautiful car. Well, now, Bob, this is a rare one, a 37 Packard 115C, and it's right-hand drive.
That's correct, yeah. Built by Packard in the USA, delivered over here to Leonard Williams, who were the sole concessionaires for them in London, and then they distribute them throughout the UK.
So it wasn't converted like most cars, it was actually built right-hand drive
Actually
in the US.
built right-hand drive by Packard.
Fantastic, and 1 year only body style, wasn't it? Or?
Yes, they only built it for 1937, the 115C,
absolutely Absolutely stunning. 6-cylinder 115C. The 115 referred to the wheelbase, right? 115 inches.
That's correct, 115 inches, only built for that particular model year of 1937, the 15 series.
Now, this is an absolutely gorgeous car, but it was a bit rougher than that originally, right?
Yes, very rough. It was being in storage for 37 years due to the previous owner's accident.
But I see 26,000 miles showing. Is that original?
That's original mileage because we've authenticated that with the 2 previous owners.
Fabulous. Now, you were telling me you and a friend restored this in 12 months' time?
That's correct, yes. 12 months from start to finish.
You work
yes.
very hard, don't you?
Very hard,
Yes,
yeah.
you work very good, too.
Well, we tried to.
I like the semaphore turn signals. Was that was for the UK?
Oh, yeah, because when they were imported into the UK, you didn't need them in America, but we had to have them by law in England.
Can you bring one out?
Yeah, no problem there.
Oh, yes, look at that. And then the rumble seat, but it's beautiful. And on back to the Packard luggage rack. I mean, what a great way to end the car.
Yeah, well, that's the only thing actually when we bought the car that's actually missing from the car. And I managed to locate one from a guy in your country, Wallace Womersley in San Diego, and he supplied me with a new old stock one.
So it's actually new old stock,
A new old stock, all the fittings, everything, original Packard, everything.
Fantastic. Now, this is such a gorgeous car. I can't believe you drive it too much.
Now and again, limited periods, because the car is so rare and so valuable that we don't use it in this country. The crazy English drivers.
Crazy English drivers.
It's basically a show car anyway.
But when you do drive it, it's smooth as silk.
Beautiful to drive. Hydraulic brakes, independent suspension, just drives gorgeous as
Quite ahead of its time, wasn't it?
Brilliant, yeah.
Bob, thank you. It's a
Thank
beautiful
you,
car, beautiful work too.
Thank you, thank you.
Bob Mitchell took top honors in his class with his 1937 Packard. Do we know how to pick him or what? As the Brits would say, the car was spot on. In the early 1960s, the open cockpit racer, such as the Shelby 427 Cobra, was losing its edge. Open cockpit racers were on their way out. The Cobras were no longer competitive in international racing, and the proud warriors were falling prey to the new Ferrari, Aston Martin, and Jaguar aerodynamic designs. Ford needed to stay competitive, and the GT40 was not far enough along in development to meet the challenge. Enter the Shelby Daytona Cobra Coupe, a design that was put together on a shoestring budget, but would dominate the road tracks during 1964 and 1965, and ultimately be the first American car to win the World Championship in 1965. Well, today we've got a special treat. We're at Oak Alley Plantation, about halfway between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, with Jim Spiro. Jim, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here.
And his stunningly beautiful 1965 Shelby Daytona Coupe. This thing is gorgeous, Jim. I've always been a huge fan of these cars.
You and I have a lot in common. I think it's a beautifully beautiful design.
Now, this was like this was the winningest car in '65. This took just about everything, didn't it?
This, in GT class, it was the first U.S. car to win the World Manufacturers Championship, and it really cleaned up across the board.
Now, there were only 6 of these built.
Yeah.
And there's 5 of them that are...
One is kind of floating around, and the whereabouts of it are kind of questionable. So for all intents and purposes, there are 5 that are known and out there, and this is one of the 5.
But now this one was actually Carroll Shelby's personal car. Well, I
For the
don't
better-
mean his daily driver, but it was his car for what, 20
Almost
years?
the better part of 20 years, yes. And then I'm grateful enough and fortunate enough to be able to own it now. So it's a treat.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you it's a treat. Now, the other thing that makes you such a unique owner here is you actually use this car. We drove this thing out here about 40 miles.
We did, and I try to drive it regularly. I guess I'm more of a hobbyist rather than a collector. So the pleasure that I derive from owning these cars is from using them and driving them and hearing them. And
Well, I truly respect that, and I had the ride of my life, I got to tell you. Now, this was a very controversial design. Pete Brock was the designer of it, and
Yes.
took a lot of flack. It almost didn't get out of the shop. One of the things that really, kind of connotes this car is this slab, this dead flat back end. And,
Yes.
and nobody had built anything that ever won that looked like this at the time.
No, they didn't. And it's the car that it really went after was the 250 GTO.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at that, there are some clear differences. And we were talking before the show, but when they initially penned the design, they didn't have this lip spoiler, call it what you will. So at high speeds, the car had a tendency to lift. But once they put that on there, I think all the things fell into place, and that's when they started winning a lot of races.
Oh, and they won a lot in '65. Now, the only thing this car was ever really dinged for was that it was an oven inside.
It was, and it still is.
Can I open it up?
You can indeed.
Well, it is an all-business cockpit. I
Yes.
mean, that's strict race.
Standard race gauges, tach speedometer, and water and oil temperature, pressure, and that's it. No frills even by 65 standards,
Yeah.
much less today's standards.
Well, every one of these 6 were hand-built,
Yes.
and so they're all a wee bit different, and they were, reflected some of the character of the builder and also some of the character of the drivers. So, you know, to try and address that heating problem, different ducts were put in and all sorts of stuff.
Yes, and what you see here, and here, these are actually functional. Again, it might reduce it from being an oven to a semi-oven, but air will flow through at a reasonable rate of speed and at least give you some hot air going in your face instead of no air. So everything you see is for a purpose and it all works.
It sure does. Well, you know, this is a 289 engine.
Yes.
Can we open it up and have a look?
We can indeed. Why don't you grab the other side?
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Now this was amazing because here's a small block car that could run with big blocks all day long and very competitively.
Yes, yes. Light car, aerodynamically very advanced. The advertised horsepower was, I think, around 390 horsepower, and I think this would be right around those specs. And as you said, when you put the whole package together, the aerodynamics, the weight, it can run with just about anything, at least of its day.
It's like it's stuck to the road. I mean, it just seems to just push down, down, down. It's a very rigid car, too. It was really the Cobra chassis, but with a lot of cross bracing and stuff, allegedly to adopt the roof, but it really stiffened the frame an awful lot.
Yes, and you and I were talking earlier. You're obviously a fan of the 427, the 289 Roadster, but this hugs the road much better, and it's a much more aerodynamically advanced ride. No question about it.
We had a blast driving out here, and it's such a rare treat. What do you say we drive it some more?
I say you got yourself a deal.
Hot dog.
Why don't we shut her down and put that little battery switch on?
Got it.
And let's get on the road.
All right. Boy, you don't get in this, you put it on.
Yeah,
it's a lovely fit.
Immediately you welcome yourself to 30 degrees more of temperature.
I had goosebumps just thinking about the history that was made in these cars. Imagine, riding in the same vehicle that Bondurant, Grant, and Carroll Shelby himself drove. We zipped down the back roads of Louisiana with Jim's friends behind us in a 427 Cobra. They wanted to tag along for the drive, and what could I say? It was quite a spectacle to see a Daytona Coupe and a 427 Cobra roar down the bayou asphalt. Let's just say we turned quite a few heads. All too soon, it was time to head back to the plantation to cool off. Man, I experienced firsthand the heat these speed demons generate in the cockpit.
You like that, huh?
Oh man! Well, Jim, this may rank as the most fun I've ever had with a car. I got to tell you.
Well, the pleasure was all mine, and the fun is equal on this end.
I got to tell you, I respect the fact that you drive this. Everybody should drive these cars.
That's my belief.
Let's let it cool and then cruise back to New Orleans.
You got a deal. Thanks.
Thanks again, man.
Thank you.
Totally awesome.